didn't mute myself, so somebody muted me. Anyway, our speakers today are Wendy Levine, who is going to be talking to us about her experiences in Cuba. Shelley Mitchell, who's been recently been in Cambodia and Vietnam. Winifred Kramer, who has vast experiences in numbers of places, and she will be focusing today on Peru, and I will be sharing a few comments about my time in India. So with that being said, let's understand that we're trying to see how these cultural experiences help us understand ourselves and others, and how our travels contribute to our mission as AAUW members. And knowing that our mission is to advance gender equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Wendy to say a little bit about herself, and then about her experiences going to Cuba. So Wendy, if you'll take it now.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Levine, and I'm a member of California Online and also Mission Viejo. And have a background in public policy as far as my interest there. I'll explain how I wound up in Cuba in just a second, but I just want to thank everybody for their interest and get started. So I was this was the view from our hotel in Cuba. So I was first asked why Cuba. This is a little bit of that, but this was the Grand Aston Hotel in Havana. I wanted to give a plug for the organization that I traveled with, that is called Next Tribe. This is for women over 45. They kind of pivoted to mostly doing travel. I found this organization, which is based in Austin, Texas, through online because of COVID. So if it weren't for COVID, I wouldn't know this existed. And now I've taken 3 trips with them since I found out about them. One of the first places we went was this field trip called Habana Compas Dance. It's primarily women. They do Latin and African inspired music with dance and percussion. And I want to point out that they do chair drumming, and that they told us this was the first, up until then, women were not taught this kind of drumming. It was limited to men. So this was at least the first place that taught women how to do it. And it's beautiful, and it's vivid, and it's wonderful. We also went to a tobacco factory, watched them do the heavy duty work there. This particular factory is women only. So we did see some kids running around there after school. Also to this particular place, we were encouraged to bring donations. Everybody brought a lot of things to contribute. And this shows you why, because Cuba has very little in the way of things you can purchase that might be needed. For instance, aspirin, vitamins, clothes, anything, pretty much anything basic. When we said, what can we bring? They said, bring everything. So that's what we did. And even then, it felt like it wasn't enough. And as you could see, somebody stopped at the store to show what it looked like there and why we were there. This was a show of appreciation. One of my co-travelers on the left, our guide on the right, and the appreciative little girl in the middle. Like I said, once we got there, it just felt like we should bring even more. But everybody was so generous and so appreciative. It was heartwarming, really. And next, this was what I didn't know about Cuba and why I wanted. Why I'm so glad I went. I didn't know about how artsy it was and how cool the architecture was. This area, known as Fusterlandia, is actually an entire artsy neighborhood adorned with mosaic artwork. The artist Jose Fuster, hence the name, he converted his home and much of the neighborhood into works of art. And it's actually still on Fusterlandia. It's still, it's the whole town is pretty much taken part. Similarly, but not related, the Muraleando project, this is basically mural land. And this was once a junkyard, and the whole community got together and said, let's make something good out of this. And that's what they did. They took all the junk and trash that was there, and they made art out of it. And now this is a big building. They cleaned the whole thing up. It's got a gift shop. They have classes for children. They have music, and there's a bar and nightclub on the top floor. So it's just a tremendous space and a great vibe there too. We also went, unbeknownst to me, the Hemingway house. I didn't even realize that he'd had a house there. But this was it. You can't go inside. We took pictures from the windows. I noticed that every room seemed to have bookcases. The building was constructed in 1886 and was the home of Hemingway and his third wife for quite a while. And it was constructed uniquely to give Hemingway his pockets of privacy so he could write. And it said that he wrote much of For Whom the Bell Tolls here in this house. Next, this was an artist studio. Jeff, it's called for his name. You see, I won't go into it, but that's his name, and he just goes by Jeff. He's an artist and he lives on the premises. But what really bowled us over was the woman who runs the place. She's next. There we go. She's Rita McNiff, and she was just tremendous. She had a career in fashion, and she fell in love with the artist and also started her own tour company. But she manages this and promotes this place. She brought in, they catered lunch for us, and they brought in speakers. They had artists come in, women artists who were able to sell their stuff to us, and that was great too. And in addition to this, they had the next woman, Vivian. She's an expert on cigars and smoking, which can be kind of controversial. But she showed us how to smoke and what she thought the value of it was. Since then, she's also gotten into designing. So now she's got a combination of fashion and smoking culture mixed together, which is kind of cool. And then finally, this was the entire group at the end. I think it might be one of the few pictures of all of us because there were a lot. It's a lot of people to travel with, but they didn't know if they'd be able to do this trip more than once, so they allowed for more people. I didn't hesitate to go because this particular group, Next Tribe, attracts such willing and open and wonderful women. So I can't say enough good things about them. They do a lot of tours, and as I said, this is everybody in the picture.
Thank you so much. This is really terrific. And now we'll move on to Shelley, who's going to talk about Cambodia and Vietnam. And Shelley, I know that you're from Palm Springs, and you can tell us a little bit more about yourself. We know that you're the newsletter editor, so we know that you know how to write.
Okay, I'm also a past president of this branch. And I joined the Humboldt branch almost 40 years ago. And then when I moved to Palm Springs in 2016, I also joined that branch. And then I joined the online branch about 10 years ago, I think. So I'm kind of an AAUW junkie. And I just want you to take a look at this guy, and that's my wife, Karen, with him. And you can go on, but I just want you to remember him because I have a story about him later. Can you? Okay. So you immediately, when you get to Vietnam, get immersed in history all the way from 1061, when the pagoda on the right was built, to Ho Chi Minh's mausoleum. He's actually in there, and apparently sometimes it's open and you can actually go take a look at him. We didn't do that, but we walked around and the grounds are beautiful. And he is the most important person in Vietnam, past, present, or future. They consider him their savior. And so when you move into history and you talk to people, you hear about him in almost every conversation. Next. So my cultural experiences always tend to involve other people, getting to meet people one-on-one. So we spent an evening walking around Hanoi looking for a place to get pedicures, thinking, oh, every Vietnamese person I know in the States does nails. So maybe we'll find nails here. And there weren't any. We went into every beauty shop and nobody did nails. And then suddenly a man tracked us down and he said, "You want your nails done?" and took us into this little place. And about 15 minutes later, the lady second from the left arrived. And she basically sat on a stool, put our feet on her knees, and did a beautiful job of all of our nails. And we had so much fun with her and talked to her. And she had a translation program on her phone. And so anything we said, she could answer and tell us what the answer was. Okay, next. So food is always also one of my favorite cultural experiences. And I was surprised by the food when we went there because the food that we know of as Vietnamese food is pretty much street food there. They gave us large, giant meals with all kinds of things in them. But we spent one morning going through the market in Hanoi. And then the woman that's there in the center of the next picture gave us a cooking class, and we all got to make a whole Vietnamese lunch and then eat it. So that was my idea of a cultural experience, being able to reproduce that when I get back home. Next. And then the whole old part of the city looks like this. I was particularly impressed with the Christmas decorations because in Vietnam, they don't celebrate Christmas, but they certainly enjoy Christmas. And everything in the city, we were there the first week in December, and everything was decorated to the hilt. But they have all these little shops, and you can go in and you'd go for one and find, like the one next to this one, a toy. Then you might find a Christmas decoration, and then there's the whole market with the food. So they have gotten shopping down to an art. And it was really fun to walk around when we weren't looking at sites or anything and just talk to the people in the stores. They all have the translation program on their phone. Okay, next. So then we took a drive, and I was so impressed. I know the French were in Vietnam for a long time, but right in the middle of the rice paddies, these beautiful chateaus pop up, which is part of the French influence. And I got to see the insides of a few of them, which aren't as French as the outsides. But I thought that was really, I was constantly impressed. Okay, next. So then we, Vietnam, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City and every place in Vietnam is busy. There's millions of motorcycles, there's lots of noise, there's lots of people. And so we spent one night on this beautiful boat on Ha Long Bay and went caving in a boat later and just really had a nice relaxing break from all of the excitement and craziness. Next. Then we got to Ho Chi Minh City, which everyone there calls Saigon. And the first place we went was the university, where they'd made arrangements for us to talk to some students. We also talked to an economist, and I came away with the burning question, why were we so afraid of communism? The economist explained that really it doesn't work very well. And out of the 3 stages, 50 years after it became a communist country, it's still at the first stage, which is being a one-party country. The second stage is socialism, where they still have leaders. And the third stage of communism is where everybody just happily does their job and they don't need any leaders at all. And I'm not sure where that works, but not here. The next place we went was the Reunification Palace, which had been the President's Palace. Whoops, that wasn't even in there. The Reunification Palace was the President's Palace before the fall of Saigon in 1975, no, 74. And it is like a time capsule. It is all completely set up. I don't think they actually use it for anything, but it's set up to be like exactly the way it was in the 70s. So if you look at the next slide, whoops, skip that one. That wasn't even supposed to be in there. Can you skip this one, please? Okay, this is the inside, and you can see all of the 70s computer equipment and all of the, it's just exactly the way it was. And of course, Karen found a baby to talk to, and we had a really nice visit with this family, and we took a picture with them. But I was just so amazed that they hadn't taken anything out. And if you worked in an office in the 70s, this is probably what it looked like. Okay, next. And I think everyone remembers the helicopter landing on the Pittman building in 1975 and evacuating everybody. And this is that building now. You can see the little tower on the top of it if you look carefully. But it's got a beautiful park in front of it. And it was one of the things. The other thing that we really enjoyed seeing was the hotel with the bars where all of the reporters hung out on the rooftop bar. So it really gave you a sense of history and helped me remember a lot about that time in my life that I'd forgotten. Next. And we went to the tunnels. They have several American tanks that they captured that they very proudly showed us. And these are the tunnels that the Viet Cong dug under the ground. This guy went all the way down, and then he put on his hat with leaves on top, and you couldn't even see that the tunnel was there, let alone him. And they offered to let us try it, but it turned out that all of us were too big to fit in the tunnels. So they were useful for the Viet Cong. And we talked to so many people who said everyone was on the side of the Viet Cong. Everybody helped them. Every village they went to, somebody helped them, fed them, helped them dig tunnels, and joined them. So even though it was sort of seen as a civil war, it really was more a revolution. Next. This is, the religion is very important. So now we're on the Mekong Delta. And this is called the Temple of the Eye, and it's a whole religion that encompasses every religion there ever was. And if you look closely, you can see they've got everything from Buddhism to Hinduism, and everything is all part of that temple. And it's actually, there's a series of them, and it's a religion that's very popular in Vietnam, which is kind of non-denominational religion, which I thought was interesting. And these houses are along the Delta. You can see we're in a boat there. And we're looking out at these houses on stilts on the Mekong Delta. The next slide is another little cultural experience I had. We were in this temple, which is at the bottom of a mountain, and I don't know the name of it. But as I walked out of the temple, a man handed me a baby. And it was he wanted to take a picture of me with her. But it was just such a nice moment, and we couldn't talk to each other. He was too busy holding the baby and the camera to get out his translation program. But there was no doubt that it was a fun experience, and that's probably my favorite picture from the whole trip. Next. And now we're in Phnom Penh. This is the President's Palace on the left. And the other really important tourist stop is you have to go to the Elephant Bar in the Raffles Hotel and see Jackie Kennedy's wine glass. She had a glass of wine there probably in the 60s, and they've kept her wine glass. And right next to it, you can't quite see them in this picture, are the sunglasses that she accidentally left on the table. And everyone we talked to told us about that. So we had to take a little tuk-tuk up there and see that. And we also had a really good time at the Raffles bar, at the Elephant Bar. We met a lot of people there. My wife is an introvert. And then we got back to the really hard part in Cambodia. 40 years ago, they literally murdered a generation. We went out to what they call the killing fields, this is the tree where they would bash babies' heads while their mothers watched. And the temple here is it's probably 4 stories high, and it's completely full of skulls that were buried there. And talking to the people, there's a whole generation that was gone. They killed the scholars, they killed the doctors, they killed the teachers, they killed anybody who they thought might have been smart or might oppose them. The gentleman in the very first picture that I said I had a story about him told us his story, and he was a very small child when this happened. His father was a high government official who was murdered almost immediately. His mother took him and hid him with a hill tribe and left him there. He was about 4 at the time, and went to hide in another hill tribe. They have no pictures of his father because she was afraid to keep any of them. And he still has PTSD. He doesn't even know what his father looked like. But it was just amazing to have that encounter and that opportunity to hear his story and talk to him, which, like I said, I travel incessantly, and individual conversations with people are always what I remember and what sticks with me. Okay, next. You move. Oh, there we go. And then, of course, we went to the temples. There's a whole complex of them. They're all beautiful. They're all amazing. They all take a lot of walking, and they're not ADA accessible, but they're well worth seeing. The Chinese have now built a beautiful road. It's the nicest road in Cambodia that goes right out to the temples, and they built a brand new airport near them too. So it was my first time I've ever been in a brand new state-of-the-art airport where you couldn't drink the water. And finally, my last one is the famous Angkor Wat, which you can see it reflected in this lake. It's just a beautiful, amazing, and peaceful place. And it hasn't always been peaceful either. We found out that it was a Hindu temple, and it was torn down by the Buddhists to make a Buddhist temple, and then it was torn down by somebody else. And as each new regime and religion comes in, they seem to need to tear down whatever the people before them had done. So for me, I guess this trip was an opportunity to relive the 70s when I was a really busy person with school and little children and everything, and really stop and think about what it all meant and what it means now.
Thank you very much. And that's a perfect transition to our next speaker, who is Winifred Kramer, who is now, well, has moved to Eureka from Illinois, where she was a professor at Northern Illinois University. And I'll let you tell us more about your international nomadic tendencies.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who's here today. My husband and I are retired archaeologists. And we worked in Peru for the last big project of our careers. So we started working, we first visited in 1996, and then in 1999, we started doing research there. And we would go every year from the week after our kids got out of school until the week before school started again. So, you know, we went for 8 or 10 weeks every summer. And, but I'm just going to do 2 slides on archaeology. This first one, you see a huge dry valley. And in the distance, you see there's some green stuff. Those are agricultural fields, mostly sugarcane. And this dry area would be cultivated, except you can't get irrigation water there without electrical pumps. And there's something about the climate that makes those very hard to maintain. Consequently, you see some low spots, some bumps on this landscape. On the left, a smaller one in the center, a sort of double hump one has right of center, one on the far right and one in the back. Those are all man-made structures that are somewhere between 50 and 80 yards long, and they're 20 to 30 feet high. And before we visited this area, they were virtually unknown. So we went to Peru and spent the first few years just showing that these existed, which was a very big deal because they're older than almost anything else that's built up out of the ground larger than a house. Let's go on to the next one. That shows you a little bit of our excavations. On the left are people digging, and it's funny, those yellow buckets that they're using to carry dirt, they're great big cooking oil containers. And then on the right, you see the finished excavation unit. And if you look at it, you see some round circles, you see some walls, but this is the remains of a whole complex of housing, including a rather unusual altar for ceremonies. So and you see it's only about 6 inches underground, and yet that dates to earlier than 2000 BC. So it was just unbelievably interesting and wild. But if you look at the next picture that I have, what happened was that we had students from the US and Peruvian archaeologists, and this is modern technology. The guy on the left is making a map with a laser guided transit, and he doesn't even need a person to hold a stick at the other end. You just point it at the ground. And the woman on the right is making a map by walking around with an antenna in a backpack. So modern technology is just unbelievable. Okay, next. What we had very good success with our research, and we ended up looking for a more permanent place to keep our equipment, and so that some of our Peruvian colleagues could work during the part of the year when we weren't there. And we ended up buying a house, but we found out about it because the restaurant owner where we used to have lunch occasionally said, "Say, have you thought about this empty house next door?" And we went, "What? That's empty?" And that is the man wearing the dark colored glasses sitting in here. His name was Gaim Birne. It's funny, they have an Irish last name, Byrne. I even have some ancestors with that name. And yet here they are, Peruvian. On the left is his mother, Teresa, who became one of my best friends. And the guy in the white shirt is a brother. My husband's on the right, and then another one of the many cousins. Okay, and Gaim ran a restaurant, and my husband loves to cook, and the two of them became fast friends. Next. And really, that's what kept us going to Peru. This is our house once we had put a new roof on it and painted it. It could accommodate, in the early rustic stage, I think we had a dozen people staying there, and then it had laboratory space and storage space. But what really kept us going back were our neighbors. Now, this is the nicest house we ever lived in. It is across the street from the beach. And the first 10 years we were there, the road between us and the beach wasn't even paved. But so it was a funny rustic neighborhood. Next. In a town that retains a lot of traditional way of doing things. My husband went to the market and he had his regular vendors. and they'd say hello. And the woman on the left was where he always bought his fish. And the woman on the right is the vegetable lady. And in the next two, you will see the fruit guy and our cheese lady, Adele. And in fact, she had to retire for health issues, and we kept going and chatted with her husband and her daughters. And the guy on the left, I forget his name, but his mother's name is Faustina. And we would say hello and exchange hugs. And he'd always like give you a tangerine when you started your shopping. It was just like a friendly gesture. And we were just captivated by the kindness of everyone who we met. So next. While Jonathan made friends shopping, I made friends going to the beach. I was one of the, I would swim even in cold weather. I usually wore a wetsuit, and there's nothing, people didn't do much on the beach but just sit. And so it's how you learn about people. And the woman I'm standing next to on the left side, Berta, is again one of she and Teresa went to high school together. They married people, lived in different places, both ended up back on the beach. They have a daughter and a son who are married, and what I discovered is that it's a community of people who are all friends. And and then on the right is the birthday party. This woman's birthday she said that the only thing she wanted for her birthday was to be on the beach. And you'd go out, and even some days, some years I wasn't there, but occasionally I'd go out and I didn't even know it was her birthday, and she'd say, sit down, have a glass of bubbly, here, have a snack, are you going to go swimming? People were very, very kind to us. Keep going, next. And then that sort of snowballed. Jonathan and I retired. We'd go in the summer, but we retired in 2014, and we went more often. And once we knew one family, we found that lots of people were related. And on the left is a baby shower. And you can see everybody's avidly looking on while she opens her presents. And on the right is a fundraiser for the biggest community activity along the beach. And it was for the Fiesta of the Virgin of Lourdes, that which I'm going to talk about a little more. Here's somebody's birthday. Should say sand sculpture contest. But this was after we retired, when we could be there in the summer, because their summer is our winter, Southern Hemisphere. Next. When we were working, we'd be in Peru from June to August when it's pretty gloomy. This is a beautiful sunny picture of our beach. And you see, there's our house is behind me, and then you go over this little seawall and you're on the beach. It was just beautiful. And so when we were working there weren't many people around. It was when we either went down for Christmas or after we retired, when we were there from Christmas to Easter, that's when people come out. It's a little bit like having a summer house in Maine. All the summer people come and all the activities go on. And we were very lucky that by the time we were able to stay in the summer, we knew enough people that we were invited to do things. Next. We were there for New Year's Eve one year. And on the right is another fundraiser for the Fiesta. I'm not a religious person, and the big Fiesta was the Virgin of Lourdes. But if that's what the community's doing, that's what I did. And so we all walked from one end of the beach to the Cristo statue on the far end to raise money for the fiesta. And why not? Next. But all of these women, they have families. They're concerned about whether they should move into Lima for their kids to go to high school because the quality education is better, whether their kids will have opportunities to work in other countries, because Peruvians there have been some very, very difficult times in Peru. Some of you may remember a group called Sendero Luminoso, the Shining Path, that were a guerrilla group that for years plagued Peru, assassinating people. Most of the archaeologists we knew who worked in the highlands had to stop doing research because they would have been threatened. And so Peruvians are often looking for where else they might fit in. And we met Peruvians who had family or had been in the US in various different places, but in Germany, in Ireland, in the Canary Islands, in Spain, in Italy, it's like everybody had other things going on so that if things got bad, they could move. And that helped us because occasionally we would see one of our Peruvian friends in an unusual place. We went to the christening of the son of a friend of ours who was in Hawaii when we were at a professional meeting there. My husband visited another Peruvian neighbor in South Florida, and we had the grandson of a friend over to dinner when we were in Italy, because they're just looking for their opportunities around the world. And that was very interesting to us that we ended up with all these connections. And then, but back to the big event of the year is the fiesta. And these are some of the women doing traditional dancing it's a religious festival. There's a novena, there's a mass, there's a procession, but there's also traditional dances, there's food. They bring out the performing horses, the caballos de paso that are famous from Peru. And all of this stuff is just going on in a cul-de-sac at the end of the street. And they even have they had a very pagan activity added in where you cut down an evergreen tree and you and the sponsor ties little prizes to it, and then they put it up in the middle of a little square, and people are supposed to go and walk around it while it's stuck in the ground and hack at it with a machete. And the person who knocks it down is the patron for the next year. That is not a Christian custom. And yet it's right in there in the fiesta with everything else. But it was fascinating to learn about this. And one of the things that we did was let the dancers prepare in our patio, because it was often a hot day. So this is the patio of our house with the dancers from 1 year ready to perform. Next. And then the woman on the left is doing a dance where the woman dances with a man on horseback. On the right is a neighbor who does a traditional dance as part of a group. Next. Oh, now it says Elaine Johnson, Indy. I think I had one more, but I think one of the things that impressed me is that people were very nice. They were very generous. And it wasn't until we'd been there for years that I discovered that after they'd had a cocktail or two, almost all of my neighbors spoke English. And they always spoke to us in Spanish because our Spanish was good enough. And I was so flattered by that. And we really went there because of research, and we stayed for the neighbors. It really just shows you that good neighbors are a wonderful thing. And that's my story.
Thank you. And I'll say just a few words about an experience that I had going to India in 2016. And I did this as a part of a presentation. I was a speaker at the 103rd Indian Science Congress in Mysore. And the reason I was there was the fact that I had been working with community colleges throughout the United States, developing a scientific workforce. I'm a microbiologist by training, and I've also been working with biotechnology and ran a national center funded by the National Science Foundation called BioLink. Because of that, a team of us from the community colleges were invited to present at this science congress for the purpose of sharing about what community colleges do for workforce development. So when I landed, Randa, if you'll go to the next slide, I knew immediately that I was in another world. And here, getting off the plane, we entered not only cars and people walking, and you don't see the bicycles necessarily and the motor scooters, but also the animals. We all shared this space, and there were no lanes. We just drove whatever. But next slide, you'll see that we after the conference is where I got to see a different side of India. And here was the palace in Mysore, and it is incredibly beautiful. And that is only one example of the richness that we saw. People were wearing jewels, and the wealth was totally surprising to me. Go on, please, to the next slide. And because I was with a group that there was one person who in our group who came from India, from this region. And so she invited us and to her parents' wedding anniversary. And here the women are preparing for the anniversary party. I think that you'll notice how the men are dressed and the women are wearing sandals, and it's extremely clean. And if you'll go to the next slide, you'll see them preparing food for this event. And here's another piece to we've talked a lot, each person has said something about food. Well, in this case, here we have the preparation of the food. And in this case, it was all vegetarian. There was no other choices. And so I was in a region where we ate vegetarian food, and I got to the point where, and I love Indian food, and I got to the point when I got back, I said, if I ever see beans and rice again, it'll be too soon, because I was not accustomed to having that much of beans, rice, beans and rice. So if we'll move on to the next slide, we had a chance to go out to one of the villages and visit a classroom of children. And the children in this case were sitting on the floor. They had no furniture. But if you see, they're all dressed really nice. They're very serious, and they've got smiles on their faces. These kids were polite. They loved having us visit them. And I have a friend who sends books to India, and I realize now why this was such an important piece. And then if we look at the next, we realize slide, we can see the other side. And I showed you that the richness, well, the other side is the poverty. And we saw this. They were extreme poverty. And so this is my last slide, and we'll move on. But the message is here that we've got a place where we've got wealth and poverty mixed together. We've got a country, the religion is 72.4% Hindu, and 14% Muslim, and then the rest. And the language, there's 122 major languages, but most people will speak English. So with that, I'm going to open this up for comments from anyone who has comments about their own experiences or how it fits with our travel experiences and how these adventures can contribute to our AAUW mission.
I'd like to start, if that's possible, and just let you know that when I was in Saigon, you saw the little tiny chairs that the people would sit in or on. And I was walking down the street in Saigon, and I had very swollen ankles, very swollen feet. And the women reached out and touched me. And they would look up at me, and just, you could see on their face, they wanted to communicate their sadness that I had these heavy legs. But we didn't speak the same language, but yet we could communicate. And that's always a memory that I have of being in Saigon.
Kathleen.
Well, I just dropped a note in the chat because I didn't know we'd get a chance to speak, but I'll just tell real quickly. We had a situation similar to what you found in India, Elaine. When we were trekking the Himalayas in Nepal, and we were just out completely in the open on this trekking trail in the mountains, and here comes a whole group of school children with their teacher. And he told us that they were on their way to this grassy knoll nearby where they sat to have their school, because they had absolutely, not only did they not have desks, they didn't even have a building. They had nowhere to have school. So when we all got back to the States, we did a series of fundraisers and sent all the money to this group to build their school. So that was a wonderful experience and an opportunity to do something for kids who, as you encountered too, they were so enthusiastic and they were so curious and they really wanted to learn. And so it was really great.
I don't know how to put my hand up.
Pat?
Go to reactions, click on reactions, and there's a little hand there.
Pat, you've had your hand up.
Yes, I think it's Wendy who went to Cuba. Is that right? I wanted to know if you had purchased any art. I did. I wish I could see what.
Yeah. Oh.
Is this I can't see. And this one piece I bought, and then I bought another piece. It's a huge tile, very decorative, very much Picasso-like. And then I also purchased a print, they're only one of the kind, of a chicken. And they said that chicken was their symbol, and that made no sense at all. But anyway, those are the three things that I bought, and and they're poor. They were very poor, and whatever the price was they wanted, that's what I paid. It was fabulous. I went twice to Cuba. One time, the first time with Rhodes Scholar, and the second time with a private group. I had to fly to Jamaica, because then the United States was really cramping down. And when I went to get a global entry official card from the US Homeland Security, they said in the most serious voice, "Do not go to Cuba again."
Oh.
Yes. Anyway, so anyway, well, twice is a wonderful experience, and I'm thrilled that I was able to go.
Thank
And
you.
I saw many of the experiences I shared also.
Winifred, you had
Yeah,
some more comments.
I do. Well, actually, Pat got me started. When we went to Cuba, we visited an art studio where a lot of the people there, they worked there, but they didn't get paid. They just had the opportunity to try and sell things. And this is the print that I bought. It's
Ah.
kind of a multicolor linoleum print. I thought this young man had done a beautiful job. So, like Pat says, I asked him what he wanted and paid him. And but my question was, yeah, I'm not sure quite how it relates to AUW, but when Kathleen was talking about doing helping with a charity, it reminded me that, as a result of our experience in Peru, we support a Save the Children project that works with income generation for women in the highlands where there is greater poverty than along the coast. And I wonder if anybody else had had an organization that they donate to, that they learned about, related to their travels.
I can comment on that real quickly. Then this is very much AEW related. So when our book club in my previous branch in Carlsbad, Oceanside, when we read 3 Cups of Tea, we got so excited about that foundation, raising money specifically for schools for girls.
Mhm.
And so we started a program within our branch called Change for Change. And we would take these cartons to every single meeting that any of us were a part of. This was pre-COVID when we actually could meet in person. And everybody would just dump all their spare change into it. At the end of every month, our self-appointed, or maybe not self, but we appointed her treasurer, she would go and get all the change, into in an account. And we did that for about 5 years and sent that foundation quite a bit of money until he got himself into some trouble.
Yeah,
And
which is too bad.
yeah, we decided to pull back on that.
Kathy Foxhoven.
I just joined a group called the Baguettes, which are a group of ladies that we are making the bags for the Days for Girls menstrual kits.
Yes.
And do you know that those menstrual kits are even going to Gaza right now? And I wasn't very good making these bags. All we do is we make the bags and then they're shipped off to Utah, and Utah goes ahead and puts them all together, and they go to the countries that are allowed to take the menstrual kits. But there are some countries that are called the red zone where we can only give money. So a woman in the group takes the remnants of some of the material and makes cute little girls' outfits that I had to buy one for my new granddaughter. And that money will go to the red zones where the menstrual kits are not allowed. And it's fun. And it's just my neighbor just right across the way
Great. Yes,
that is doing this.
yeah, great. Yeah.
Pat?
Yes, on 2 fronts. Number one, our chapter, which is Hayward Castro Valley, voted to allocate funds for period packs for schools in the Hayward School District. So exactly what you're talking about, Kathy. And
Yeah.
secondly, on a personal note, I am helping support a school in Uganda, which is started by a family friend and her son. The son and his wife have started this school and teaching children how to read. And I go to every fundraiser they have throughout the year, and that's what I do personally. They're raising money to have flush toilets for the primary school students.
Yeah.
So that's where life is in certain parts.
All right, well, we're out of time. Gail, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here today. And for those of you that have either friends or that would like to join the online branch, it's a wonderful group that we have that gets together. Gail?
Okay, thank you. I had something to say, but we're run out of time.
You can say whatever, if you're the one in charge now of the time.
I belong to Altrusa, which is another mostly women organization, nonprofit. And our club, we're called the club, has made hundreds of complete Days for Girls kits, which are phenomenal. And it's very exact and very detailed how they're made, but they stand up to time. And it's such a rewarding thing to know that you're making something to help a young woman or even older, a woman who's still menstruating, because in so many countries it's still a taboo. They're still ostracized and made to go sit in a hut. One of these countries, they couldn't go to school, and they would sit on a piece of cardboard during their menstrual cycle because they had nothing they could wear and they missed school. So that is why the woman started it all, and she has a wonderful book. So sorry, I would recommend her book. It's about the Days for Girls journey. And then maybe we'll talk about a book club in our next thing. We're ready to move on to the annual meeting. So ladies, put your hats on and we'll change hats and change our, and you can leave your beautiful face on too on the screen and unmute. Oh, wow, I love it. Oh, and I will take a screenshot once everybody opens up their picture, but we'll take that later. So I am going to do a drawing too. We're going to have little surprises going to you if you win a drawing. And I have put everybody's name in a basket. There's a basket, of course, you can't see it because of my background. And so I'm mixing them all up down here in my lap. And I'm not going to look. I'll look at you while I pull a name. And our first winner today is Sharon Westoffer. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So our first agenda item is going around the room and introducing yourself and telling us about your hat. So we'll just start. I'll use my screen and go left to right on the rows. So Randa, would you go ahead, please?
Yes, my hat is my one and only hat. So I'm glad that I have kept this over the years. When I was at Tigard AEW branch, when I first moved up to Oregon, we had an installation, and the person conducting the installation brought us all hats that were being installed. And she gave a little spiel about now we were wearing a different hat in the branch. And I thought that was a really cute way to do an installation. So that's my hat.
Thank you. Oh, and my hat is a hat I like to wear. Normally, I don't have this really bright flower. I just stuck that on for today. And I wear it when I am doing Mary Austin. Mary Austin was a female author in the valley where I live. She wrote Land of Little Rain, which is all about Bishop and Big Pine and Lone Pine and the high desert. And she was an incredible writer and went on to write a lot of other books too. And I always found her inspirational. And I'll go around to historical events and act like I'm her and quote from her book and tell her story. She was fun. Oh, and also the program was fantastic. Thank you so much. Elaine, tell us about your hat.
My hat is the closest thing I could get to a tiger. And I was born in the year of the tiger. And a tiger is brave, strong-willed, sometimes stubborn, pioneering, outspoken, playful, enthusiastic, impulsive, impatient, fearless, and has a strong sense of justice. So I'm paying tribute to my Year of the Tiger.
Awesome. Sharon.
I have a Pacific Whale Foundation hat that I got in Lahaina in Maui. And a close friend of mine's cousin lived there. And with the fires, he lost absolutely everything. So he's staying with the family now, and we'll be visiting him in December. So, and I love whales. So that's my hat.
Awesome. Pat.
This is a hat that my dry cleaning lady made for me when she heard I was a reenactor of Eliza Glass. Eliza and her husband David were settlers in the San Ramon Valley, and I became a reenactor during the year 2011. And that was in celebration of California 100th anniversary of women getting the vote. And the woman who organized it, the former mayor of Danville, which is nearby, and we went to schools, we went to Rotary clubs, at every civic center, women's clubs we could get booked. And I was in my long Victorian dress, and it was a fabulous, wonderful opportunity to celebrate women getting the vote.
Okay, Winifred. You're muted.
There. This is a hat that reflective of my personality because it's a rainbow. It has a little bit of everything. And I've always liked to try and do a little bit of everything. And I'm kind of game for whatever is next. And my husband and I like to drive to the end of the road someplace and see what's there. So I feel like this is a good personal expression. And I got it on my
Yeah.
truck. Okay.
Thank you. Shelley.
I'm wearing my pickleball hat. I got it when I went to Indian Wells a year ago for the national championships, and my friend Margot, who taught me how to play pickleball, won the gold medal for 80 and over. And I didn't have a hat that day. I never buy anything at anything, but I didn't have a hat that day, so I bought this one, and I wear it when I play 3 times a week. And it turns out it works for golf too.
Okay, Kathleen.
So as you can probably anticipate, my hats are all political statements. And this actually isn't my favorite hat. My favorite hat I bought at the Memphis Civil Rights Museum, and it says, "Well-behaved women seldom make history." And I can't find it. It's in a box somewhere from our move, and I haven't uncovered it yet. So this is my second favorite, and it's a tribute to my hero, Rachel Maddow.
Oh, yeah. Kathy Foxhoven.
Well, I don't want to shock all of you, but this hat is Nixon's the One. And I was a Nixonette in college with a girlfriend, and we joined the Nixonettes and wore paper dresses and these hats. And we actually went to a rally and shook Richard Nixon's hand. This was in the days that I was vacuous and ignorant. And but my mom, the dress tore, but for some reason she saved the hat. So I thought it's priceless. Nixon's the one.
Awesome. Winifred spoke already. Wendy?
She said she had to go to work.
Oh, okay. She left her. Toby. Uh-oh, I wonder if she stepped away. We lost Kirsten. She dropped off. So if they come back, if Wendy or Toby come back, we'll ask them to explain their hat if they undo. So that's great. Okay. So Sharon has a wonderful announcement to give us about our
Yeah,
name. You know what, Sharon? We should wait until the person is back in a picture. So I'll call on you when we see her picture.
okay.
And that gives you all a hint, but I'm not going to say anything else. Thank you, Sharon. Um, all right. So we'll skip those, skip the 2 slides about, yeah, very good, Randa. You were fast. All right. Oh, I have another drawing to make. Let me do it real quick, real quick. Okay, grabbing a name, Shelley Mitchell. Yay! Okay, moving on. Public policy. Kathy Harper is our next public policy chair. Kathy, she's going to replace Patrice Lynn, who can't be here today. So Patrice asks that Kathy would go ahead and talk about public policy.
Thanks, Gail. I'm actually just going to read a statement that Patrice wrote, and I only have one little edit that I will add when I'm completed it. So Patrice reports that this year the public policy interest group focused on discussing topics for our monthly state public policy newsletter. The big public policy event of the year was Lobby Days, which took place on April 2nd and 3rd. Members from around the state participated online or in person. We were placed in groups with the team leader who was in charge of introducing our organization, and then members of the team who would be discussing different bills for them to support. The in-person experience is phenomenal. I can add a little bit of personal experience because Patrice and I were both in Sacramento and did in-person lobbying and meetings with we had all staff. Neither one of us had any meetings with legislators. But it is a really great experience to actually be there and do it live in person. I would definitely recommend it. This is back to Patrice. I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's able to get to Sacramento for Lobby Days. Thanks to those members who participated in the meetings and for Lobby Days. And I will add, I did a little bit of snooping on my own and discovered that we had 7 California Online members who participated, and many of you are on this screen. So thank you all personally on behalf of the California Public Policy Committee, of which I'm a member. We really appreciate you coming out and helping us with that. She says, hopefully we'll have even more people participate next year. So that's really all she reported. I just want to add, I hope that you, since she really was highlighting the public policy newsletter, I hope I know she sends that out every month to all members. And so I hope you all have an opportunity to take a look at that and keep yourselves caught up in what's happening with the State Public Policy Committee. We have lots of stuff going on, and just a little plug for the school board project, of which I am the chair. And we're still working on that throughout this next year. We'll be continuing to work on that as elections start heating up. And we're really looking for good school board members to identify and to encourage to run for office, and then for all of our members across the state to get engaged in supporting these school board members, because it's so critical right now. There's so much money coming from the Republican Party to back school board candidates who are very regressive and whose values are antithetical to AUW's education goals and values. And so we need to do our part to try to get good candidates out there. So I'm going to put a link in the chat, and I hope you will all take a few minutes to go to that link. That links you up with our school board project toolkit, and it tells you everything you need to know about the project and how you can be involved. And I really want to encourage you to go to school board meetings and report back to us and let us know what's happening.
Kathy, can I ask your question? Did Julika and myself get included in your list?
Can you what?
Did Julika and myself get included in your list from online members?
You did, Randa. I did not see Julika's. I didn't know Julika was a member of online. I'm sorry. I know that she participated, but I didn't see her.
Yeah.
I didn't know she was online. So that would be 8 if she is.
And to do that, we can talk later, Kathy. Yeah, all of the interest group chairs, when people say we want to join your interest group, they send an email to our email administrator, and I'll send you, that is Haley Green, and I'll send you her address. Well, it's also, it'll be, I'll be sending out the roster, her email's on there too. So
Great. Thanks.
each interest group person takes, kind of tells our email person who they want, wants to be in their group. Instead of the membership chair doing it, we have each interest group person do it. Okay. Moving on to Kathy Foxhoven, DEI and Speech Track.
Okay, DEI, we had 3 sessions this year, and we're going to have 3 sessions in the coming year because we've all got so much going on. But our first session, we were trying to figure out some of the words that have become part of our language as a result of politics. The second program, we were going to attempt to change some of the names that are considered discriminatory. And unfortunately, I was without power, and God bless Randa, who handled the program. And I guess we got some ideas. And then our third program was on restorative justice, transformative justice with Rachel Foxhoven. And so I've got some good programs planned for the coming year. But let's move on to Speech Trek. Speech Trek has hit a roadblock, and we're working on it. I'm going to be the new Speech Trek coordinator for California State, and hopefully we'll be able to salvage the competition or use up the money that that has been donated specifically for Speech Trek, and it can only be used for Speech Trek. So we'll keep you posted on that. But in the meantime, we wanted you to see our 4th place winner, Nicholas Jones, who did an incredible job as a sophomore. Generally, these participants do well as seniors, and he was only a sophomore. So, Randa?
Okay, well, our name gift recipient for this year is Toby, as Gail mentioned, or mentioned her name. And we all know that when you give her a job, she does that job. She dots all the I's, crosses the T's. She doesn't give up. She gets the job done and then some. She's a great advocate for EF and for LAF. And we know that she's a night owl. If you want to text her at 2 or 3 in the morning, that's perfectly fine. She'll respond to you. So congratulations, Toby.
Thank you.
Anyway, for the online programs, we've had 4 regular programs plus the annual event. So on September 22nd, we were invited by the Oregon Online Branch to have the Nick Whistle young women speak about their experiences at the National Conference for the College Women Student Leaders. And we had people that represented women that represented computer science, communications, hospitality, and tourism, political science, medical, legal history, and medicine. And this was so well received that there's a request that we have another Nick Whistle panel again if it's this year or soon. So at any rate. And then we moved on to January 27th, where Gail Swain did her presentation on What Color Are You? And these how to work together depending on your personality types of blue, yellow, green, and red. This program is carrying over, and people are practicing with each other and realizing why they're either doing great together or having issues. And so it's a really super project, and it was submitted for the Branch Activity of the Year award. It did not receive the award, but we're listed on the website of a branch that submitted a branch activity. And then in March, we had this very wonderful program on gender pay equity with Elaine Rizzo, who spoke about her experience as a Latina math educator and how she was faced with a situation where she was not getting the pay that she deserved, and men around her with less experience were getting more money. And she took her case all the way to the Supreme Court and won, and she was assisted by the Legal Advocacy Fund. Toby Balma suggested her and was the moderator for that program. I'm not going to say very much about the April 27th event because most of you were there, and the recording can be found on the state website. And finally, we have today, and you've seen it. So our cultural understanding through travel. And I've made this slide just to have for a record of this. And thank you to everyone who has participated in our programs throughout the year, the presenters, the participants, the technical support. And I want to recognize particularly Randa, who has just been super wonderful to work with on these online programs. And without her help, they would not have been possible. So that's my program report.
Thank you. Just one thing before you send it to Alice for the website. Shelley Mitchell spells Shelley with 2 E's. Randa, can you go back to the 2 slides before program? Because I think Toby's here. Okay, now go forward. There. Toby, did you hear that?
I see that. Oh, what a
Congratulations.
surprise.
And then
Thank
there's
you.
something, Charmin wrote up some stuff about you. Oh, I don't know
Really?
where it went.
Oh, I mean, okay. The other one's supposed to be in here. I'm sorry. I put it in.
Sharon, did you have what Charmin wrote?
No, I had the same. Well, let's see. I can look on my
I sent it to you.
yeah.
I
let me
can look
see.
for it too.
Thank
There we go.
you. This
Yep.
is,
I saw the slide a minute ago.
Yeah, I know it kind of disappeared.
There it
there,
is.
this
There
is
it is.
quite,
is.
quite
I just
an
had it the wrong
honor.
one.
Sharon,
Oh.
read it to us.
Okay,
Toby.
so Toby Balma, a superlative job as membership chair, bringing many new members, a wonderful mentor, always willing to help others, responsible for inviting author Lisa C. to the book group discussion of Lady Tan and her circle of women, invited Elaine Rizzo to speak at our equal pay program, and is a huge asset to the branch. Thank you, Toby.
Thank you, Toby.
Thank you.
Okay.
Woo.
So Randa, where do you want to go?
Can we go to the election before I go and find it?
Okay. So Kathy, you were going to talk to us about nominations.
Okay.
Huh?
Our president will be, for the coming year, Gail Swain. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Vice president membership will be Elaine Johnson. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Don't all speak out at once. Okay. For Vice President Program, Kathy Foxhoven. And anybody can speak out on that one. Okay. We still have Vice President Fund. But
Excuse me a moment, Kathy.
Yes.
I told Elaine that I would do fund weeks and months ago, but I would not do an online auction.
Okay, okay. Well, why don't we all get back to discussing that with Gail at some other time. At this point, treasurer, God bless her, is Jean Simutis, and secretary Sharon Westifer. What would we do without Randa Blanding? And website Alice LeBay, and email list Haley Green, social media Gail Swain, public policy Kathy Harper, DEI Kathy Foxhoven and Patrice Lynn, and books, though I know that Harriet is looking for somebody to take over books.
Yes, she is. We need someone to take over books or it will be discontinued as far as I know.
Okay,
Point of information. To
Right.
elected, to vote on elected officers, do we need a quorum of branch
We're
members
not going
or
to
a
be able
quorum?
to, we're not going to vote today since we may have a change. So we won't vote today. We'll do by email.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Thanks.
Someone will talk to me, follow up with me.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So Elaine Johnson helped me and we helped each other on the nomination committee. That's not too much fun because when you're on the nomination committee, you end up taking an office. But that's just the way it goes. So,
Okay,
all right.
let's do another drawing. I don't have many names left. Guess what? Okay, Elaine Johnson.
Yay.
And I'm going to do another one. Winifred Kramer. It's spelled like cream, but you say Kramer, right? Oh, well, she's not talking. It's okay. All right. Our next thing on the agenda is, just a little bit. This month we have the first 7 articles of bylaws will all change based on what National has sent us, but we're going to do some other changes too. But of course, you'll get what they are. You'll have them for 2 weeks and then we'll vote after 2 weeks. I mean, so we'll go through the exact way we have to do it according to our bylaws. So as far as Tech Trek, we are doing Tech Trek. We have 3 virtual campers, and Mary Isaac is helping Randa and I do it. Randa and I hopefully will be helping with the actual virtual camp. Haven't found out what we'll be doing yet, but it is this summer after school is out. But it's really neat that we have 3 girls that we are sponsoring through donations. The money for it does not come out of our fund, our club, our branch coffers at all. It's all been donated.
Can I ask a quick question, Gail? How
Uh-huh.
do we do Tech Trek online? Does anybody who wants to find a girl in a school where they live nominates them? Is that how it works?
We actually, Mary Isaac asked us to do these 3 girls. Now next year we will open up nominations in California Online, and because one of the girls is from Oregon, there's 2 from California and they're twins. It's so cute, they're twins. And And Mary Isaac came to us saying, let's do these virtual campers. I've got the people donating the money, and that's how we're working it out. But next year we'll make it open more so that you can nominate girls who may be in your city, you know, that aren't by a physical branch that is doing Tech Trek, and they'll be able to attend virtually, and they'll do just as much as that the girls do in person. And they actually get a big, huge kit that they will be taught how to make. I know they're doing robotics and wonderful things, even in the virtual realm. So it sounds like it'll be a great experience for these girls. Tech Special Interest Group has a meeting on Monday, and they're going to talk about the possibility of them not continuing and just recommending everybody to attend the state tech group. And like we said, the book group may not continue if there isn't anybody that's going to step in for Harriet, and she would be the person to talk to.
I think we'll continue. We may just have to do it in a different way.
Or maybe take
structure
turns.
has to be different. We'll just take turns maybe instead of having a facilitator.
That would work. Take turns for each book. You know, somebody could say they have a book and then be responsible for that session, because I would love to have you all read the book about Days for Girls. And I actually know the woman, and she's willing to do a virtual book event with us, just like, you know, the past ones where we had a very well-known author, and she has told me, you want to do it, I'll be there for you. So
Would
that'd
she
be
be
amazing.
willing to do a program for us this coming year?
We don't know. I'll ask her if it's about her book, you know,
Oh,
kind of
okay.
about the book.
Okay.
But the book is all about Days for Girls. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So the way we do it now is each member submits a book or a couple of books titles.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be that different. Usually the job of the facilitator is to take all of those recommendations and do a vote. So we'd have to figure out how to do that
Well, we'd still have to do a vote and decide which books, and the person who nominated that book then would be responsible for presenting that book and
Right.
talking with Randa or myself about the Zoom, because we only have myself or Randa that really, you know, will take care of the Zoom for programs or interest groups or whatever. You know, we can add more to that, but right now we're the two that does it, because Zoom has gotten really wonky. You know, we used to be able to just share, okay, here's our sign on, here's our password, but now Zoom, and it did it to me because I had gotten a new PC. It'll send a code to the email, but luckily Jean figured out how to add my email and Randa's email, so we also get the code if it's feeling like it needs a extra second step to sign in. So, which is a good thing. It helps protect us, so nobody else is just using our Zoom account that isn't really us. Wow, that flower is driving me crazy. Anyway, it keeps going, oh, look. And
I'm going to share the screen now. Hopefully it's going to work for.
all right, Randa's ready. Go ahead.
Are you seeing it?
Nope. Oh, there.
Oh,
Yes.
there we go.
Yes,
Yes.
he's there.
I have a feeling though that. Are you going to be able to hear
There
it?
he is. Perfect.
Welcome to California Online Speech Trek Contest. Our first contestant is Nicholas Jung. And I'm going to, once I hold up the yellow card, you may begin speaking almost immediately. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to be ready for you. There we go.
How many of you love jigsaw puzzles? Well, if you're anything like me, you'll find that putting together an 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle is not only challenging, but also therapeutic. It's the way that each piece of the puzzle plays a crucial role in creating your overall image that makes me love puzzles. But there's nothing more frustrating than when you find out that you're missing certain pieces. And they can't even just be the edges. They have to be pieces that are critical to creating your overall image. Picture this. You're building the famous Mona Lisa, and you find out that her smile is missing. Or there's a cavity in your Grand Canyon. Or the tip of your New York skyscraper has vanished. Unfortunately, our American history books are just like these puzzles with missing pieces, thus creating an incomplete and inaccurate portrayal of history for our students. I'm a bit of a history buff, and one of my favorite heroes is Dr. Feng Shan-ho, a Chinese-American diplomat who, while stationed in Austria, issued thousands of visas to persecuted Jews, allowing them to escape the Holocaust. Yet, when we think of American heroes, those who devoted their lives to the war efforts, we think of leaders like President Roosevelt or soldiers like Audie Murphy, because those were the names that were hailed to us in our textbooks. So why are names like Dr. Feng Shan-ho absent? History should be about all of us, and it's important that it focuses on those of all backgrounds. So why are there so many people, just like Dr. Ho, who are not included in school curriculums? Dr. Chen-Sheng Wu was a Chinese-American physicist who worked on the Manhattan Project. Annie Jump Cannon was a deaf astronomer who revolutionized a system of ranking the stars, and yet her work is credited to Harvard University instead of her. Native American Mary Golda Ross fixed numerous design flaws on high-speed airplanes and even created designs of her own for high-speed airplanes. Yovita Idar was a writer who wrote tirelessly about the injustices faced by Mexican immigrants in the United States. And another unsung advocate, Josephine Baker. She was a bisexual African-American who also served as a spy during the Second World War. The commonality between all of these influential yet absent figures is that they all belong to minorities or groups of marginalized people. And it's not just figures that are being excluded from our textbooks, but key historical events as well. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 was passed, banning all Chinese laborers from immigrating to the States for the next 10 years. 60 years later, and the Chinese were finally allowed to immigrate again. I still remember my 5th grade teacher telling my class the story of how his grandfather immigrated to the States during this time. The story always resonated with me because I always wondered about the struggles of Asian immigrants in the States, especially because my community is dominated by them. Yet, those stories never came through school. The experiences of the Chinese, like my teacher's grandfather, are not expressed in our textbooks, despite them overcoming obstacles put in place by the government. So what are ways that we can ensure that these figures and events are not excluded from our curriculums? Well, some states have already made progress. In 2011, former Governor Jerry Brown passed the Fair Education Act, which ensured the inclusion of people with disabilities and members of the LGBTQ community in California curriculums. I also support Governor Newsom's signature of Assembly 101 in 2021 because it adds ethnic studies to the list of high school graduation requirements in California. California, Connecticut, Kansas, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Michigan, Missouri, Oklahoma, Oregon, New Mexico, Nevada, Texas, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, and Wisconsin are among the 19 states that have already made ethnic studies curriculums accessible to their K-12 programs. But it will take a lot of extra work to get the other 62% of the nation to include any sort of ethnic studies curriculum, so make it accessible to their K through 12 students so that they can learn about heroes like Dr. Fang Shanho as well. Ensuring the accuracy of my ethnic studies curriculum comes as easy as having biographers and historians write their own missing stories, which would then be vetted for accuracy by the Organization of American Historians who have had a past of writing about inclusive history. I would not currently remove any topics from my curriculum, as I believe it removes perspective, and I believe that students are plenty capable of creating their own opinions based on the facts that have been presented to them through these topics. Including an accurate ethnic studies curriculum filled with stories from minorities and groups of marginalized people would be like finding the missing piece to the puzzle of the United States. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Randa, for doing that, getting that for us. He was really good. It was all about curriculum, right, Kathy, this year?
Yes, and how to have full curriculum, historical curriculum in the schools, which is not happening.
It's
Is-
going the other way in so many of the states, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
we are,
very
you know,
scary.
very scary. And Kathy knows too, you know, regressive candidates. Just, oh well, we could go on forever on that. All right.
This is a,
Final drawing. All right. Final drawing. Who do we have? Toby Balma. Yay.
Yay.
And Kathy Harper.
Yay.
And Wendy Levine. I think Wendy left, didn't she?
yeah,
So everybody here's won a drawing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
what do we
That's the
get?
plan. Oh, it's a fun little thing.
Oh.
It's here, it's in a packet and it's got a card with story. And then there's a pin. I don't know if you belong to a land-based branch, or you belong to anything, there's a little pin you can put on your lapel or wherever. And then there's a little story with it. And the story is all about you make a difference. And so this pin symbolizes how you make a difference. And it's the story of the shellfish. And you can Google shellfish story, you make a difference, but you'll get a little card that the story's on. And this little pin is surprisingly cute. It's not very big and you can just put it somewhere. Do any of you have name tags in an organization you belong to? You could put it with your name tag if you wear a ribbon with all your pins. Elstrusa does that. We have ribbons and we have all these pins. It's crazy. Okay, so
Is it the same story as the starfish?
of what?
Is the shellfish story similar to the starfish story?
Did
It
I
is-
say
it is-
shellfish? It's the
yeah.
starfish.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the one where the story goes. There's
You're right.
all
Yeah.
these starfishes washed up on the beach
Yes.
and this little boy's walking down the beach, throwing them back in the ocean. And a man goes, "What are you doing? You can't get all of these starfish." And the little boy picks up another starfish and says, and throws it in and says, "Well, I made a difference for that one, didn't I?" You know,
Oh,
it's such a heartwarming story.
that's
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. And Randa did record it, so we will send it out to all the members. And we can stop the recording. Thank you. Or did you already, Randa?
No, I was waiting for you to say.
Okay. Go ahead.